Chapter 3: A Snowy Setup.
Shadow immediately looked up, seeing the cause of the crashing sound. What? A golem? Hoax did not believe this part of their adventure was fine anymore. He wasn't even sure if there would be more parts. Lorenzo, the one who got everybody wrapped up in the adventure, was the first to take action. "Run!" he yelled, making sure his friends ran prior to beginning himself. The two began running, so Lorenzo followed. The golem was made of rock, snow, and ice, sliding down the mountain it was originally sighted at. The three didn't have time to look back, but they had to look up. Snowballs were crashing down from above them. Obviously, none had hit their level of ground yet, but they were coming. Lorenzo was shocked. Will we even make it anymore? He sighed, showing a lack of belief in their situation. Shadow didn't take a second to reply. Yes, we will, he stated with immense confidence, continuing to run. Lorenzo shook his head, following. Hoax was right behind them. This sucks! Hoax stopped as a snowball crashed in front of them, continuing afterwards. The three made it to the area of the mountains that went lower, hope growing inside the trio. However, the golem had caught up, straight behind them. It didn't speak, simply preparing to attack Hoax first. He covered his head with his arms, attempting to sprint. As the golem formed a snowball and threw it, Lorenzo attempted to protect Hoax by running in front of him. It hit Lorenzo. Hoax instantly checked on his friend. However, Lorenzo was fine somehow? As much as both of them were confused, they went back to running. Shadow waited for them. Lorenzo and Hoax stopped running after what they heard next. Keep going, I'll hold the golem back. Shadow began to walk forward, Hoax showing concern. Are you sure? You'll die, he yelled, Lorenzo putting his arm around Hoax's shoulder. It's fine, he'll come back, you'll see. He confidently told Hoax, the confidence burrowing its way into him. He nodded, the two running once again. They ran and ran. It was filled with anxiety as they continued to look backwards. They didn't see Shadow follow them. Then they made it to a swamp. Just as they did, they saw a bright purple light come from where they left Shadow as they ran. He's probably gone! Damn it! Lorenzo stopped running, stomping on the ground instead. Hoax sighed. Maybe? Let's just make it to a safe place. We can discuss it there. He attempted to support Lorenzo, resulting in the two making it somewhere else, a swamp. He attempted to support Lorenzo. They felt relief until they remembered Shadow. Should we go back? What should we do? Lorenzo was lost, practically begging Hoax to answer his cries as they sat down on logs. He didn't know either. Sorry, I just don't know what to think right now. Let's just hope he'll return, okay? I'm sure. Hoax told himself as he struggled to maintain his composure. Lorenzo breathed quickly, looking around. He still held on the hope that his friend would return. They simply sat there for a while. Let's go look, Lorenzo said, no emotion coming from his voice. It was a completely monotone statement. Hoax nodded. Alright, let's go then. The golem should be gone. He justified the decision to himself, beginning to walk back. Plenty of outcomes pieced themselves together in the duo's minds, resulting in a deep anxiety growing more intense by the moment. They made it after a while, seeing nobody. Where's Shadow? Lorenzo looked around frantically. I don't know. Hoax realized their mistake when a loud crunch in the snow nearby struck them by surprise. The golem returned. You've got to be kidding me, seriously? Lorenzo seemed more angry than upset at this point. What are we going to do? Mr. Hoax struggled to rationalize any decision he thought of, hoping a second opinion would boost his confidence. We fight, I guess. Lorenzo sighed, burying his hands into the snow. You seemed awfully lacking in confidence earlier, but sure, let's fight. Hoax stopped for a moment. But with what? He scratched his head. Lorenzo had formed a snowball by this point. Let's fight fire with fire! He had become as badass as somebody walking away from an explosion with no peeking back. Until he threw it. Boom! Lorenzo put as much strength in as he could, hoping it would work out in his favor. Unfortunately, it didn't. The snowball did absolutely nothing to their enemy. Damn it! Lorenzo clenched his fist. Hoax sighed. Now what? He awaited a suggestion. We go back to the swamp? Or maybe Shadow's alive? Lorenzo answered his worries. I don't think he is, and the golem blocked off the swamp entrance. We're screwed, dude. Hoax fell onto his knees. This adventure ended in tragedy? No, it can't. Lorenzo struggled to accept their situation as the golem began running towards them. I can't just let this go to waste. I've made friends, foes, and I finally have a purpose. No! He put his hands up as if he could defend himself. The golem came crashing into him and making it to the other side of Lorenzo. He failed his defensive goals. Then the golem fell into the ground. Hoax was in awe when he noticed a human-shaped hole inside the golem's torso. Lorenzo was still standing, and the golem wasn't. What happened? Hoax was incredibly confused, running over to Lorenzo. Wait, why are you on fire? Let me grab some snow and... Lorenzo stopped Hoax. No, this feels natural to me. Don't. He looked at his burning hands, confused but somewhat comfortable. Warm. Hoax was even more confused, of course. He watched as Lorenzo turned around towards the golem, flaring up his hands in what seemed to be anger. Time for you to leave, permanently. Lorenzo showed disgust with the golem, his whole demeanor changing completely. He made quick work of the dying golem, melting its body slowly. Lorenzo finished his job after a few minutes. He left the area of the now gone golem. Hoax walked up to Lorenzo. You feeling okay? He asked his friend, waiting for an answer. Yeah, I'm just... Lorenzo fell directly onto the ground, clearly unconscious. Oh jeez, this isn't good. Lorenzo struggled to move him. Hours went by as Lorenzo was unconscious, and unfortunately, he missed quite a lot of eventful things. But of course, he would catch up upon waking up. So, he woke up. Anyone there? Lorenzo struggled to speak as he had only recently regained consciousness. He opened his eyes. Where am I? Then he realized. He was in the swamp he had previously stayed at with Mr. Hoax. Lorenzo, you're awake! Hoax ran over to his stationary body. Can you hear me? He continued. Yeah, anything happened while I was out of it? Lorenzo rubbed his head, physically exhausted, even after his long rest. Well, Shadow is... He was cut off. Back. Shadow concluded Hoax's statement, seeming fine in terms of health. Lorenzo was caught off guard by this twist. Wait, what? I was worried about you, he sighed. Where'd you even go? Lorenzo continued interrogating Shadow. It's simple. I got defeated. Although I didn't die or anything. He shrugged the whole event off. Lorenzo struggled to understand Shadow's perspective in this situation. You've got to be kidding me. Well, what happened to that golem anyway? Shouldn't it have killed us or something? He looked at Hoax, only to be met with another question. You don't remember? Mr. Hoax smiled awkwardly. You legit shot fire out of your hands. That isn't something you forget. He pondered this question for a moment as Lorenzo only showed confusion in response. Wait, you're joking, right? You must be. He laughed, but nothing was funny. Shadow remained silent throughout this exchange. Hoax sighed. I'm serious, but it seems you just weren't yourself during that period of time. Well, that's fine. He shrugged, Shadow beginning to speak. We should set up camp. It's night time if you guys haven't noticed. He pointed up, the other two looking up. They never really realized. Okay, let's... Oh, already done, as per usual. Lorenzo stretched, entering his tent. Hoax jumped into his, and Shadow yawned before going inside his one. Good night, the three yelled from inside their tents, practically knocking themselves out. It was a big day for everyone after all. Lorenzo dreamed much more than usual that night. He couldn't stop dreaming about fire. It's like something woke up inside him. Lorenzo was happy he made friends though. He was happy, even if they almost died. Inside his dream, there was an extremely large fire taking over his childhood home, eventually reaching him, waking him up. Lorenzo practically jumped when he woke up, extremely scared. What if that actually happened? I actually summoned fire. He talked to himself, clearly overthinking it by a large amount. He was too afraid to fall back into a deep sleep, remaining awake throughout the night ahead. Well, that isn't entirely true. Lorenzo fell asleep an hour later, and what unfolded afterwards was nothing short of insane. It began with frantic voices outside of his tent, seemingly in immense fear. As Lorenzo drew closer to a conscious state, somebody entered his tent. It's time to wake up, Lorenzo, they said, somebody shaking him immediately afterwards. Seriously, come on, Hoax, try and help out, please. The person who seemed to be Shadow asked, being met with somebody who was most likely Mr. Hoax entering. Lorenzo, come on, wake up, this is serious. He struggled to wake Lorenzo up. Eventually succeeding, however. He immediately sat up, opening his eyes. What's up? Why do you guys seem so frantic? Lorenzo looked at them. Can't you tell? The forest is on fire! Hoax explained in what seemed to be like a speedrunning world record, running out of the tent. Lorenzo immediately woke himself up upon hearing the news. What? Let me see! He ran out into the forest, seeing what could only be described as a roaring inferno. To him at least. Shadow exited the tent. Guess we're leaving, right? We continue traversing the land, we can't stay here. He gathered their attention, the three of them leaving. They were silent. The tents were still there, but they most definitely lacked the time needed to pack their gear up. As they run throughout the forest, it only became increasingly difficult to see through the thick smoke. Trees were falling occasionally onto their path, and the fire was scorching all around them. Lorenzo decided to slide underneath a log midway through their escape, the other two jumping over it instead. Hoke suddenly yelled, "Watch out!" He continued running, pointing towards another falling tree. Shadow managed to react quick enough to miss it. Hoax was relieved, but just as scared due to their situation. Lorenzo was also in immense fear. After a large portion of their escape had been cleared, a voice was heard. Huh? What was that? Hoax questioned the event, struggling to speak due to their fast pace. What did he say? Lorenzo almost tripped over, managing to finish the sentence. I believe he said, "I'm coming for you!" or something. Shadow shrugged, still running of course. Eventually, they realized the voice was gone. Weird. Lorenzo stopped running, taking multiple simultaneous breaths afterwards. He had made it outside of the burning forest, now in a more rocky and less colourful, marshy area of the large expanse of nature. Shadow crossed his arms, sighing. That's relieving. We made it. Lorenzo, you should probably check the map. He looked over at Lorenzo, waiting for him to check. Holy crap, we're a quarter through already! He looked at the map, surprised. Really? That sounds good! Hoax cheered, suddenly optimistic due to this news. We might make it then. A long time before we do, though. Shadow dusted his hands off, clearly happier than before. It sucks the forest burned down. However, and that voice, who did that? Lorenzo refused to let go of his recent worries. He was extremely vulnerable, extremely anxious. Shadow went over to Lorenzo, resting his hands on his shoulder. You're fine, it'll be okay. I'm sure that was just paranoia. The forest was on fire after all, and we were all very scared. Though that doesn't seem as bad for someone like you. Shadow comforted him, though it seemed slightly condescending. Lorenzo sighed. What do you mean, as bad for somebody like me? He seemed slightly offended. You know what I mean. Fire. Shadow glared at Lorenzo. Hoax looked between the two. Don't start fighting now. We aren't even at the treasure yet. Save the plot twist for later. He attempted to resolve the conflict. It worked, temporarily. Fine, let the hot head run rampant throughout our group. Shadow crossed his arms once again, turning away in a mix of irritation and disappointment. Lorenzo seemed upset, no longer angry or defensive. Why are you suddenly so aggressive? Lorenzo sighed, feeling defeated. Shadow simply turned away in response to this. That's irrelevant. Let's continue. He began walking with no warning in the slightest. Hoax, while not wanting to necessarily side with anybody, followed behind Shadow. Lorenzo did the same, growing more disappointed. It seemed conflict had begun manifesting itself in the already roughly made team. Lorenzo was in a serious sense of doubt due to the recently beginning infighting. However, he wanted to try resolving it as soon as possible. Hey, Shadow, can I tell you something? Lorenzo stopped walking, hoping Shadow would turn towards him. He didn't, and Hoax noticed. His facial expression changed to that of somebody in the midst of an extremely odd situation, which was remarkably accurate. Alright, I understand you need some time, Lorenzo concluded, attempting to be mature, being the bigger person of the situation. Shadow remained silent. Hoax began to sweat, not because of the awkward, intense mood, but because of his exhaustion. Hey guys, we should really take a break soon. He slowed down significantly throughout speaking. Sure, I don't see a problem with that. Shadow happily agreed, coming to a complete halt. It was a sudden advancement in their situation, but was welcomed by the other two members. All three of them stopped at a flat rock, taking portions of it as a seat for each individual member. So, what should we talk about while we rest? Lorenzo turned towards the other two on his right, specifically hoping for Shadow's input. No idea. He spoke, clearly not with enthusiasm, however. Hoax sighed, having to be the one to break the ice. Let's discuss our plans after we discover the treasure. I mean, that's fun and easy, right? I'd be interested in that. He attempted to justify the topic, turning between both of them as he was in the middle of the three. Sure, I'll go first. I'd love to have a more social reputation alongside being successful. I want to be able to make my family proud, after all. I feel like this treasure could really be an opportunity to reach those goals. I've always had them. Lorenzo took a deep breath, which made it clear this monologue was a lot for him. That was actually pretty interesting. I hope we make it, Lorenzo, for everybody's sake. Mr. Hoax smiled innocently. He then turned to Shadow. Do you want to go next? I'm especially interested in your ambitions. Mr. Hoax awaited agreement, which did eventually come to him. Clearly, Shadow preferred Hoax at this current moment. I'll begin with the basics. I desire power and superiority. It's nothing evil, I just enjoy that. For my daughter and I. He cracked his knuckles, relaxing his body more after his explanation. Clearly his daughter brought him a sense of ease. You have a daughter? Lorenzo and Hoax alike screamed in shock. Shadow laughed a little, looking off to the side. Something was odd. Yeah, I do. I forget to mention that part of my life. She doesn't exactly live with me anymore, though. She's old enough to live on her own. He hastily explained, seeming like a pretty good dad. That's sweet. I hope we can meet her No. Hoax was cut off by Shadow. He was caught off guard, to say the least. Okay, sure. No, then. He awkwardly attempted to move away from their extremely recent mishap in their conversation. I think it's your turn now, actually, Lorenzo suddenly spoke, bringing Hoax a sense of relief after the minefield that was talking about Shadow's daughter. He nodded. That's true. Guess it's time for me. I've always been a top-tier chef in my town. Lorenzo also lives there. But anyway, I always have. I wanted to do something different for once and be able to grow as a person. I am only 17 after all. Hoax finished his sweet and motivating tale. Maybe you should grow too. That was moving, Hoax. Nice. Lorenzo smiled. I agree. Sorry for snapping at you earlier, by the way. I appreciate your hospitality. Shadow put his arm around Hoax. You too, Lorenzo. I should trust my own friend with the things you have. You have a good heart. I'm sorry. He sighed, clearly not expecting to apologize so much. Lorenzo smiled even more. It's fine, really. I shouldn't have been so defensive. Thanks for apologizing. I appreciate it. He finally felt relief without doubt. Hoax smiled alongside Lorenzo. It's all good. Also, do you know what I just realized? He looked up into the sky, the two questioning him. What? They both replied. It's nighttime, this time with no tents, or anything. Unless somebody has an idea. Hoax got up, looking at the two. You know I can always fix this stuff. Shadow yawned, confidently setting up 3 tents in the same fashion he always has. Good night, guys. I'm already tired. Shadow dipped into his tent. Lorenzo felt good. I'm glad we're all okay again. Damn, you two are helpful sometimes. Good night. He went to bed smiling. Hoax waved. Good night. He seemed energetic, therefore not resting. Instead, he sat back down on the rock. His thoughts were about to leak out. Why do the 2 others have such amazing powers? He mumbles, looking down. I know Shadow might not, but it sure seems like it. I just want to be powerful too. Lorenzo can control fire, damn it! He became louder, growing frustrated. He didn't stop. I just want to be good enough, but I know that's impossible. After all, who doesn't? I'm not special at all. An empty smile drew itself onto Hoax's face, remaining there as he stumbled into his tent, distraught. The other 2 were asleep at least. They didn't hear a thing. He was safe. Then he slept.